Alrighty, welcome everybody.
Woohoo!
Super excited to be sharing with you guys tonight. Carissa and I are leading this kickoff call for the LeadHerShip podcast study with Brittany Howard. So wanted to just make a couple of quick announcements as people are still hopping on here. But reminder that this business, like Brittany said on the first podcast, is 80% mindset and 20% skill set. And I think we don't often realize how much we need personal growth. And if you've done this business for any length of time, you know it, right? But that's why it's so important to be showing up to the calls and putting ourselves in a position to be encouraged and to keep learning. I'm still learning all the time, but I wanted to make a plug again for the book study that Tamara and Jordan Ronberry and I are collaborating on Fridays at 12:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. This is The Self-Aware Leader by John Maxwell. It's been so good so far, and I'm really excited. So on Friday, I will actually be hosting the call. So make sure that you hop on there. If you have not ordered the book, you are not behind. Okay, go order the book. It's a really easy read. It's actually a really short book, but it'll lead us all the way up to convention. Also, I just wanted to remind everybody to be inviting for the Real People, Real Stories on Thursday evening. And then in 2 weeks, Carissa's team is actually going to be hosting the business version of that call, Real Income, Real Impact, on Thursday, the 25th of May. So make sure you guys take advantage of those. They're really, really great. And it's a great layering either for your wholesale people that are just getting started on their products or with the business and or potentials. And you can very easily green dot your invites. People that are live on Facebook at any given time throughout the day, blitz and do like five reach outs throughout the day at any given time. It's so easy to get those invites in. Also, I wanted to remind my team that I am extending my little incentive till midnight tonight. If you did your one a day in May so far, those videos are golden, you guys. Jessica Heffley put together a power-packed training for all of us, okay? She's featuring, herself and then all of her diamonds and there's some jewels that are popping in and doing a training as well. And so those little one-a-day short videos are essential for just training and giving yourself tools to put in your toolbox and to give you ideas that you may not have thought of, or just to put ideas in your mind that will expand your perspective. And then there's the little 1111 IPA every day, which is so simple. And I know that our little chats are basically all incorporating the little 1111 so that we can keep the needle moving forward in your business. And if you want to earn the cruise, make sure you 5X or 10X that number, okay? But just to encourage you guys with that and to reach out to your 2 hairy, scary dream team people. You will not die, I promise you. That coupled with sending your goals in. So if you have not done those things, please do those things. And I'm sure Carissa would just resonate with do those things, regardless of whether you get a prize. But I have, for my team, another coaching call spot and a couple more prizes. And I really thought there would be more than 3 people that earned that. So put it on your radar. So before we go to bed tonight, do that.
Hey, let me chime this in too when it comes to those hairy, scary business reach outs. I know we say this all the time about like the statistics of how many exposures it takes, but I just want to encourage everybody that I did a lot, I still do, but I mean, every time I do one of those hairy, scary business reach outs, it is with the full understanding that I'm planting a seed. And I would love it if that person is ready right then, but so often it's like a year later or 2 years later or 4 years later that person is ready to work the business. And I'm continually dripping and continually nurturing those friendships. But I just want to say that, like, if you do it, you did it right. Like, you didn't do it wrong if they ghosted you or they came back and said no. That is 1000% normal. So if you do it, good job.
Yes. All right. And one quick little announcement as well. For those of you who were part of our Rising Ruby retreat, for you earners, we actually are doing a follow-up coaching with just you guys. And that is going to be on the 25th of May. Okay, so we're keeping it consistent with the real income, real impact that evening. But at 3 p.m. that afternoon, Carissa and I are going to do a collaborative coaching with you guys. But the prerequisite for that call is that you have filled out your ideal worksheet, your ideal week worksheet, and have also worked through the reality worksheet as well. So if you did not do that this week or are not doing it this week, do it next week as a prereq for that call. Okay, alrighty. All right, okay, so we're gonna just delve into some of the content that we all gleaned from the first episode. I hope you all were able to listen to that. If you didn't, for some reason, it's not the end of the world, you're not behind, but try to listen to that tonight, because I think you'll get out of this what you're going to put into it. And so if you make an intention to listen to the podcast and even re-listen to it, jot a few notes down, and then come to this call, it'll flesh out. It's kind of like a book study, except it's an audible one, right? So it'll just flesh out and really drive home some of the key points that she talked about in that. So I love the content really for this first episode, which she talked about the exponential rewards that investing in your own personal mindset will pay. And I thought it was interesting. She actually posed the question of, how much money is that thought costing me? Because she really talked a lot about taking our thoughts captive, right? And she was talking about the 5 ways that successful people think differently. And it's really, really interesting. And I'm so thankful for you guys getting to be in Plexus now, because there's been pioneers that have paved the way, right, to show it could be done, right, to go diamond, and for more than one person to go diamond. There are still a whole bunch more people that are going to be jewels and diamonds in Plexus. But I just think that right now we're in a special season where we are learning tools that we didn't know about, or I didn't know about at least 8 years ago, or even 5 years ago. And so I'm just really thankful, because so much of this business is mindset. And it's something that I didn't really give credence to when I started, but I know it's so important. And I think a lot of people never consider examining their thoughts, or the fact that their thoughts could be holding them back. But what we have done over the past year or two, where we've coached live and group coached, and also worked people through the model. Some of you are familiar with that, some of you might not be. But when we talk about the model, we're talking about the CTFAR little system for taking your thoughts captive. Another word that we use, or another, we have these little worksheets that we call creation cycles, which is basically Jessica Heffley's version of the CTFAR model. But the basic premise is our circumstances create our thoughts, which create our feelings, which create our actions, which then drive our results. So if you have a piece of paper, you might want to write that down, because as we work through thoughts and feelings and just get those on paper and become aware of those, you will use that model over and over and over again. And you'll teach it to your kids, and you'll really glean some things from it. Did you want to say something?
Yes. And let me say this too, that I think there's 2 camps. Like, there's the camp of people who are very literally struggling to get into action because of things that you are thinking are true that need to be taken captive. But I also want to address those of you who are in action and have a hard time understanding the people you're trying to guide who aren't in action. Because I have heard leaders say this. I have heard leaders say, oh my gosh, I hate all the mindset stuff. Like, just get to work, right? And I have had that thought at times, and maybe you've had that thought. Maybe you're kind of a high performer, high capacity, or just go get them person. And you've thought, oh, why do we have to why do we have to do all this mindset stuff? Why can't people just go do the things? So I want to address those of you who feel that way too. And maybe you pendulum swing between feeling both ways, but it has struck me, and I haven't learned this. I didn't learn this early in my journey, but when people are not taking action, it is because of something they believe. And so we have to understand that it's not just the fluffy mindset stuff that, some people just love it and some don't. If people are not taking action that moves the needle to grow their team, it is because of something they believe. It's something that they either believe about themselves or Plexus or the products or the opportunity. Somewhere there is a lack of belief that is keeping them from action. So whether maybe you don't struggle to do your IPAs. Maybe you get them done. Maybe you're able to take those thoughts captive that pop up. But this is a very real thing for almost everybody that you have on your team, that you have influence over. And so recognizing that and not being afraid to find out what those thoughts are. Like, that's a big thing that this 2 years of coaching with you, Megan, has taught me, not to avoid whatever those little sentences are that do pop up for people that are keeping them from action. Avoiding them does not make them go away, right? So like this week, I put in my stories, I said something like, maybe y'all saw it. I said something like, I would love to hear why Plexus isn't for you. I may not agree, but I would still love to know. And I put a little question box, and my thought process was, well, how can I possibly address these objections unless I know what they are? And I've learned through coaching not to be afraid of those thoughts that pop up, because you have to be aware of them in order to rewrite them. But I feel like years ago, I probably would not have wanted to know something like that. I would have wanted to pretend it wasn't an issue. So that's all I wanted to chime in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. And I think that the fact that realizing that we can influence people's thinking, and we need to have our thinking influenced. And that's why sometimes people, when they get discouraged in their Plexus business, they do the worst thing that they could possibly do for their business, which is they don't show up to calls anymore. They don't attend convention, or they don't get to leaders retreat, or they don't show up to Super Saturday. And I'm like, oh, the people that like really need this are not hopping on the calls. And it's just like, when you are in fellowship, you're putting yourself in a position to be encouraged, to be challenged, to be to grow yourself and your mind, your spirit, your soul, right? And so I think that the same thing really applies to us in our businesses, and that sometimes we do get discouraged, but realizing that we need community to help others, to open ourselves up to let other people influence our thinking in a positive way, because we do act out of our thinking and from our beliefs, right? And that creates a lot of feelings. And I actually did a big brain dump yesterday. I had a very frustrating day, homeschool wise and just housework wise. And I mean, it was weekend recovery mode and all that in my house, but I'm like, I don't love operating from these feelings. I was more aware of my feelings. And I resonate with Carissa, because I think sometimes goers and doers, it's like, well, who cares what you think about it or how it's making you feel or whatever, why does that matter? Just go do the thing. But like, I had this epiphany when Jessica Heffley and I had a tea time coaching session in Portugal with Emily Gibson. She's like, it doesn't matter if someone goes and does the 200 reach outs. If they're not coming from the right mindset, they will not have the results that they want, which is just, they rocked my world in a big way, because I always have operated from the just take the action, the results will follow. And to an extent, I still believe that, but I think that our results will be better and exponentially more effective if we're operating with the right thoughts in our heads and the right feelings that we're feeling in our body. And that really, our feelings come from the thoughts that we're thinking, right? And so I think it's
I can give a really vulnerable example of that.
Yeah.
So, and I shared this at the retreat, having been in this business for 8 years, my team has built and rebuilt itself many times over. In fact, I was just crunching the numbers the other day, and I have 69 level ones who I am personally responsible for, who are ordering products, but I have 11 who are working the business. And there have been seasons where I had 40 working the business. So that is normal, right? That it's a little bit cyclical, and that it's a process of building and rebuilding. But oh gosh, I lost my thing. What were you just now saying? I had an example. Oh, yes. So talking about how you can take massive action, but your thoughts are still creating your results. So I have a perfect example of this. Like, I'm a massive action person, but a thought that I have struggled with, well, let's go with the feeling first. The feeling I have struggled with has been defeat. And the thought I have struggled with that's attached to that defeat is, I I could sign up a new builder, but that one day they might hurt me. One day they might ditch me. One day they might leave me. Okay. So that's like a thought I've struggled with over this process. Well, what ends up happening is, sure, I'll do 100 reach outs around Christmas time, for our 100 reach outs, or I'll do all these big, bold asks. But when it comes down to the moment of, I can tell the iron's hot, it's time to hop on the phone with that person and start duplicating them towards silver. What do? I pull back, I self-protect. And I tell myself, oh, I need to go make dinner for the kids. I can't hop on the phone right now. So like, that kind of thing, that's where we do it. That's where we self-sabotage. That's where we create with our thoughts. So it's not to say, like you said, Megan, that massive action won't produce anything. It will, but it's just very, very interesting how sneaky our brain is and how much our thoughts influence what we do, versus when I'm operating from the thought of, you know what, I just never know. Like, I never know when that next person I sign up is going to run with it all the way to 5-star diamond. And this could be my moment. I'm hopping on the phone with them. I'm going to plan an event with them. Like, I will do anything and everything to create the success I want that person to have. And it's all coming from that little root thought in the back of my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so good. And I think it's really helpful to hear Carissa or me or any of the jewels or gems on the call share from their experience. Because I think sometimes we're tempted to think that, oh, so-and-so has the X factor. Oh, that's why she's diamond, or that's why she's a ruby in this business, because of this special thing about her. And in reality, all of us have things that we have to overcome. And maybe I have something different to overcome than you, or you have something different to overcome than me, but we all have things to learn in this business, regardless of if you had previous network marketing experience, or you have a really big network, or maybe you have a really charismatic personality and people just are naturally drawn to you, or whatever. And so I love Brittany Howard because she's so relatable and she makes this sound doable. One, because it is. And two, the fact that if you're willing to grow yourself, you can be as successful as you want in this business. And she was talking about her own journey, that it wasn't fast. It hasn't been fast, but she was willing to do the hard work on herself. And she shares some really vulnerable stories about, failures she's had along the way, or mindset things, or the fact that she had zero network when she started Plexus. And it's encouraging to me in a really big way to hear her say that. And I hopefully you guys all feel encouraged by listening to what she has to share. And I think sometimes we want to really glorify, the people that go fast in this business, which is so inspiring. And, if that's your journey, you just own it, right? You just roll with it. But I think that hearing her share from her own struggle of how she's gone diamond and now has a multi-million-dollar team, and I think she is a five-star diamond or whatever, it's encouraging to hear her share like some specific tangible things. And so she gave 5 ways that successful people think differently. And when I was hearing her talk, I actually had a question that I was going to ask Carissa, and I think I have a couple jewels on this call, but I was curious, Carissa, specifically when you started, did you have a success mindset or a victim mindset? Like when she was talking, did you hear, did anything pop up to you, like when you thought back to when you very first started? And were there certain things that you had to overcome mindset wise when you started working the business or sharing with people?
Okay, let's see here. I think that I came into this business with some natural influence and some natural leadership ability. So right off the bat, I didn't have a ton of struggles in that area, but I did eventually hit a leadership lid where I did start bumping up against some of those victim beliefs and limiting beliefs. A couple of the ones that she mentioned in the episode that I did resonate with, again, not necessarily from day one, but over the course of the 8 years, the comparison. So she talks about success-minded people use comparison in a healthy way, that there are healthy ways to compare, to show you what's possible. And if she can do it, so can I. And then there are unhealthy ways that we compare. And for me, sometimes that looks like seeing another leader sweep the contest, or seeing another leader have multiple team members sweep the contest. And instead of that, encouraging me to embrace that challenge as figure outable, maybe instead I just walk around really agitated and walk around moping a lot, and don't necessarily ever work that through the creation cycle and decide how I want to believe and how I want to line my actions up with that. I've definitely struggled when she said, believing that something's never going to change. That if you ever catch yourself thinking, oh, that's never going to change, that is a telltale sign that you're probably in a victim mindset, because people who believe that they control their outcomes through their choices know that they have the power to change anything they want. And people who believe that outside circumstances control what happens to them, of course, they're going to believe it can never change. So I that one was big for me, because there've definitely been moments along the journey where I have caught myself thinking, oh, that'll never change, or my points will never change, or XYZ, that'll be a waste of time. Let's see. She prompted us to say, if it weren't for blank, I'd be further along. Definitely would be curious what other people filled in that blank.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to share in the chat. So I resonated with that one. And I already spoke to this before, which is that, in 8 years, you see people come and go. Mm-hmm. And so there have been definitely seasons where I went, oh my goodness, I wonder where I'd be if that person hadn't quit, or if those people hadn't quit. So there we go, right? Mm-hmm. That's, I think, everything I wrote down.
Yeah. And, when I started, I remember feeling like I had just a mountain of fears. And my mom would even tell you guys, like, as a kid, my besetting sin was fear, just fear of man, fear of whatever. Right. And so when I started to share Plexus, I had a lot of fears to tackle, because they just kept popping up. And I think it was, when I look back, my journey was pretty fast, but I think I was able to take the fearful thought and pivot quickly. It didn't mean that the fear thought went away necessarily, but it was almost like I was able to somehow separate the fear from completely paralyzing my action. And so I've shared this before, but in the back of my mind, I was thinking, oh, people are going to think I'm trying to sell them something. And like, that is just icky to me. I had this like hang up about making money off of like helping people with their supplements, until I was just listening to a training video, and my thinking was challenged. Jessica Heffley said, the world runs off of business. It is not wrong to get paid or compensated for helping people with their health. And it was like, bingo, that makes perfect sense. People pay me to teach their kids to play music. Why would this be something different? We pay every other service person in our life. And so that shifted my thinking in light of that. I also had this, fear of people thinking I was going to sell them something, but also alternatively, I had the thought of just this hopeful perspective of, I can't wait for people to like come back and thank me for helping them, or for being brave and sharing it with them. And so it was almost this juxtaposition of two thoughts that were both back there, but I was leaning towards one over the other. And that's what in like learning about the creation cycling, or the CTFAR model. Now I understand like how I was choosing to operate, even though I really didn't understand the model. I was choosing to operate from the positive thought versus being crippled in fear over the other, potential fear that may not even be true, of where someone might think I was trying to sell them something, which we are selling, but that's not a bad thing. Like, we're selling is serving, right? And so I would encourage you guys, in light of the thoughts that are popping up, to get them down on paper, brain dump. That is going to be homework for you guys this week. But I wanted to go through the points really quickly. So the first point she talked about was taking ownership. The second point she talked about was not to quit. And I thought it was interesting how she actually said they've done studies on network marketers, and the studies have pointed to the fact that those who do not quit within a 10-year time period will hit the top of their company. And I was just like so excited and encouraged by that thought. And that was what was told to Justin and I when we interviewed people at our first leaders retreat. Unanimously, hands down, that's what Diamonds and Jewels that we interviewed said. Don't quit. You'll be successful if you don't quit. Number 3 was be willing to fail and be willing to look stupid. And, you know, when I first started making videos, like I knew they weren't that great. I kept doing them. I was like, like I was putting myself out there, and I hated to look at myself when I was talking, but I just kept failing forward. So I saw myself actually, when she was talking through some of these, I saw myself in these points. I was like, yeah, thinking back, like I did make videos and they were awful, but I just kept going and kept doing them. Number 4, like Carissa talked about, healthy comparison. And what I think is so interesting is that people can listen to the same thing or read the same book or read the same podcast or blog or whatever, listen to podcast, and be either inspired or completely intimidated. And I noticed this with something that happened like probably 10 years ago. And I was like so inspired by this homeschool mom that was doing all the things. And then this other person I talked to was like really negative, and like it was basically a reflection of their own insecurities. I thought, like thinking through that. And I was like, it's so interesting how some people feel like it's a slam, you know, if they see someone doing better than them or being more successful, instead of being crippled with, oh, what am I doing wrong? And blah, some people will actually follow that person that's more successful than them and seek to duplicate what they're doing, or even go and ask them like, hey, tell me more about what you're doing. I want to know the scoop. And having a curiosity about that, and the follow the leader mentality. And that's really what my mindset was when I started Plexus. I was like, okay, anything I see Jessica Heffley do, I'm going to go do it. If she does a live, I'm going to do a live. If she makes a post, I'm going to make a post, which I don't know, right or wrong, I did it and it seemed to work. So I wasn't always the best at coming up with the most creative ideas, but I was able to duplicate and kind of put it in my own words, the post or the video or whatever it was. And
that is a golden tidbit right there. Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah. And even now I try to do the same thing. And Jessica is doing these little chat threads, and she's been popping some videos that she's made. And so I am trying to duplicate even now some of the goodness that she's doing. And it's not anything that I don't already know, because we've done these before, right? But it's like, am I willing to just duplicate and teach what she taught and just do the same thing? And then number 5 was being excited by opportunities, especially the problems. And I think that's a telltale sign of a successful person versus someone with a victim mindset, is if you view opportunities and even problems as motivators to figure out a solution. This line to practice, this thought is, everything is figure outable. Okay. And my dad taught us growing up, he's like, it's easy. Everything's easy once you understand it. And I've used that with my kids so many times. And it's really not a mystery. Okay. Whether it's math or whether it's network marketing or whatever, like if you're willing to understand it, learn it, find out from other people what's working or what's not working or whatever, it's figure outable. It'll become easy to us, right? Okay, so before we pop off, I want to give the homework. So Brittany talked about being wildly successful, and she said this is how you become wildly successful: is you work on your thoughts. I work on my thoughts. And she said it's 2 things: self-awareness, like our book that we're learning in, and also putting the work in to take our thoughts captive. And so what I'd like you guys to do, what Carissa and I would like you guys to do, is to creation cycle thoughts that pop up when you sit down to work. Okay, so this is not where you're going to like time block 2 hours of your afternoon to figure out your thoughts. This is, you're going to brain dump. When you sit down to do your IPA, you're just going to have a piece of paper and you're going to scroll down any thoughts that pop up as you sit down to work or as you're working. any thoughts that pop up as you're sending messages. Just brain dump them. Okay, just get them on paper. And then once you're done with your work or whatever, then you're going to creation cycle. And you may just want to take one thought. Okay, like Brittany gave some examples. She said, I don't want to bug people. Or I don't know how to help my team. Okay, whatever reoccurring thought is popping up for you guys, we want you to get that down on paper. And then we will pop some creation cycle sheets so you can print them out and work through that on work through the cycle. And now I want to remind you guys that you're going to actually work through the whole process. So it's not just sitting and wallowing in the negative thought, but this is giving ourselves a way out of the spin cycle of our thoughts. Okay, so and we're not going to camp out in the struggle. We're going to be overcomers and offer our brain an alternative thought, or better yet, a scripture to combat the erroneous thought, or maybe even just a negative thought, right? And to consider
hey,
yes.
So, and also it's not effective to combat the thought with the exact opposite. Your brain has a really strong BS meter. So it's not, it's a shortcut, and it's not going to help you to just be like, I am super confident when I send out video messages, you know. But what you are going to do is ask yourself, how would I like to feel about this activity? Or what else is also true? What else could be true? Or what is an area of my life where this thought I'm having, where I actually do feel and think very opposite? You know, think about maybe if you're a homeschool mom, maybe you think, oh my gosh, I'm so disorganized, I'm never going to get it together. But then in some areas of your life, you're quite organized. So you're going to have to come up with truths that are believable to your brain that help combat the thought that that isn't creating the outcome you want.
And this isn't just like a quick thought swap. This is actually doing the work to give yourself an intentional thought to practice, aka like meaning we will have to practice the new thought, right? Or combat the thought with the word of God. And also I would add layering to that is speaking out the word of God, and also praying, and even creating a question for our brain to think about versus just like a statement. Okay. And Carissa said her question was, what else is also true? And then another question we like to ask is, why is that a problem? I'm asking myself that a lot now.
Yeah.
That's a good one to really consider. Carissa, I haven't been looking at
that helps you dig a lot deeper.
Yeah.
What?
Have you been looking at the chat at all? Has there been anything that's popped up there that we
No, I've kept up really well with the chat. So the chat's all good, and we can let everybody go for the night. Okay. All right. Thanks guys for popping on. We'll do week 2 next week, and Melody will be the hostess for that. All right. Good night, friends. Good night, everybody.